Hello and welcome, children, to the second part of the second chapter of English literature, Anne's Confession. I know you all must be curious to know what happened to Marilla's amethyst brooch, isn't it? So let's go ahead and see what happened to it. But before that, let's recall what we have seen in our previous video. Children, in our previous video, we have seen that Marilla has lost her amethyst brooch and asks Anne if she has seen it. And Anne confesses of seeing it and wearing it too. But Anne is not sure whether she has put it on the table or she has pinned it on the pin cushion. For this, Marilla presumes that Anne might have lost it and punishes her by sending her to her room. Children, Marilla is also upset because she cannot accept Anne lying to her and she hopes Anne will confess soon. Let's read ahead, children. Later in the evening, when Marilla went up to see Anne, she saw that a child had been crying. "The picnic is tomorrow, Marilla," cried Anne as soon as she saw her. "You won't keep me from going to that, will you? Let me out for afternoon. Then I will stay here as long as you like afterwards. But I must go to the picnic." Children, here you can see that later when Marilla goes to Anne's room, she finds her crying. And as soon as Anne saw Marilla, she pleads with her to let her go to the picnic. "You are not going to the picnic until you have confessed, Anne." "Oh, Marilla," gasped Anne. But Marilla had gone out and shut the door. Children, you can see that Marilla is very angry with Anne as she presumes that Anne has lost the brooch. And Anne is very upset because how can she confess to the thing which she has not done at all? And she just wished to go to the picnic. Wednesday morning dawned, bright and fair, perfect for the picnic. When Marilla took Anne's breakfast up to her, she found her sitting straight up on her bed. She looked quite determined. "Marilla, I am ready to confess," said Anne. "Ah!" Marilla laid down her tray. Children, in this scene, we can see that on the morning dawn time, that is when the sun rises, it is known as dawn, children. So on Wednesday morning, when Marilla takes Anne's breakfast, she finds that Anne is quite determined and she is ready to confess. And hearing that she is ready to confess, she keeps her tray down. The tray of breakfast, she keeps it down and sits beside her to hear whatever she is ready to confess. "I took the brooch," said Anne, as if repeating a lesson she has learned. "I didn't mean to take it when I went in, but it looked so beautiful. I thought I could put it back before you came home. When I was going over the bridge across the lake, I took the brooch off to have another look at it. Oh, how it sparkled in the sunlight! And then, when I leaned over the bridge, it just slipped through my fingers and went down, 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 all purply sparkling and sank. That's the best I can do at confessing, Marilla." Children, before explaining it, I would like to tell you the meaning of sparkle. By sparkle, we means it's shining. And by leaned, I leaned over the bridge. That means she's bending towards the bridge. So now let me explain the scene. Here Anne is confessing to Marilla that she is the one who has took the brooch, and she also tells her that she did not intend to take it out, but it was too beautiful to resist. So she wore it and planned it to bring it back before Marilla returned home. But as she was walking over the bridge, she took it out once again and was admiring it glinting in the sunlight when it slipped and fell into the river. Marilla felt hot with anger. "Anne, this is terrible," she said, trying to speak calmly. "You are the wickedest girl I ever heard of." "Yes, I suppose I am," agreed Anne. "Will you please punish me right away, Marilla? Because then I would like to go to the picnic." Children, you can see in this scene that Marilla is now totally angry with Anne and she calls Anne as a wickedest girl. But Anne doesn't bother about what she is saying about her. She is only worried about the picnic. You all love to go to the picnic, isn't it? And a day before the picnic, if you do something wrong and your mother says, "No, you are not going to the picnic now." So how will you feel, children? The same way Anne is feeling. She just wants to go to the picnic. She is not worried about the thing what Marilla is thinking about her. "You will go to no picnic today, Anne Shirley. That shall be your punishment." Anne jumped up and grabbed Marilla's hand. "Oh, Marilla, I must go to the picnic. That was why I confessed. Please punish me any other way you like. Think of the ice cream, Marilla. I may never have a chance to taste ice cream again." Children, in this scene you can see that Marilla tells her angrily that she will not let her go to the picnic, and that would be the best punishment that Anne would get. But Anne pleads to her to punish her in any other way but to let her go to the picnic. She badly wants to eat the ice cream to be served at the picnic. She may never get it to eat it again, she says to Marilla. Let's read ahead, children. Marilla let go of Anne's hand, saying, "You needn't plead, Anne. You are not going to the picnic, and that's final." Marilla returned to the kitchen where she kept herself busy. She washed the dishes and fed the hens. Children, here you can see that in spite of Anne's pleading and in spite of her wanting to go to the picnic, Marilla rejects her plead and she doesn't allow Anne to go to the picnic. And Marilla keeps herself busy in all his daily chores like washing her dishes, feeding her hens. Then she remembers that there was a small tear in her best black shawl. She decided to mend it. As Marilla lifted the shawl, she noticed something glitter and sparkle. She snatched it with a gasp. It was the amethyst brooch. Children, as Marilla goes about her course, she remembers that she had to sew up a tear in her favorite shawl. So when she goes to pick it up, she finds something shining in it. And to her surprise, she finds the brooch sticking to it. "What does this mean?" said Marilla. "Here's my brooch that I thought was at the bottom of the lake. I remember now that when I took off my shawl on Monday afternoon, I laid it on the table for a minute. I suppose the brooch caught in it somehow well. Marilla went looking for Anne and saw that she had been crying. Children, in this scene, we can see that as soon as Marilla found the brooch, she is surprised because she was thinking that the brooch was at the bottom of the lake. Then she realizes that it may have got caught on the shawl when she laid it on the brooch that was on the table, and she had not noticed it. She immediately goes to tell Anne that she has found the brooch, but she finds Anne crying over there. "Anne Shirley," said Marilla, "I've just found my brooch hanging on my black lace shawl. Now I want to know what that story you told me this morning. "You said you would keep me here until I confessed," answered Anne. "And so I confessed because I wanted to go to the picnic. I thought of a confession last night and made it as interesting as I could." Marilla had to laugh. Children, as I told you before, that as soon as Marilla noticed the brooch, she goes immediately to tell Anne that she had found her brooch and also to find out what that story about losing it was all about. Anne explains that it was a lie and she cooked up the story to be punished so that she could be allowed to attend the picnic. Listening to this, Marilla started laughing. "Anne, I was wrong. I shouldn't have thought you lied. Of course, it wasn't right for you to confess to a thing which you hadn't done. So, if you will forgive me, I will forgive you. And now, get yourself ready for the picnic." Anne flew up like a rocket. She washed herself while Marilla filled a basket for her. Children, here you can see that Marilla is happy now and she is willing to forgive Anne and ask her to forgive her too. She packs a picnic basket for Anne and sends Anne off for the picnic. That night, a very happy, tired out Anne returned to Green Gables. "Oh, Marilla, I have had a perfectly scrumptious time." Scrumptious is a new word I learned today. "I heard Mary Alice Bell use it." Children, you can see how happy Anne is today. She returned from the picnic and she is very, very, very happy today. And she has also learned a new word, scrumptious. Children, by scrumptious, we actually mean delicious, but here it means wonderful and enjoyable. So she had a very wonderful and enjoyable time in the picnic. Everything was lovely. We had a tea, and then Mr. Harmon Andrews took us for a row on the lake, 6 of us at a time. And Jane Andrews nearly fell overboard. She was leaning out to pick water lilies, and if Mr. Andrew hadn't caught her just in the nick of time, she would have fallen in. Children, here you can see that Anne is so happy after returning from the picnic, and she is expressing her happiness by telling the stories which had happened in the picnic. She is telling about her boating on the lake with her friends. She is telling story about Jane Andrews, her friend who was about to fall while picking up the water lilies. And we had ice creams. Words fail me. I cannot describe that ice cream. Marilla admitted to Matthew that evening, "I made a mistake, but I've learned a lesson. And although Anne's confession was a lie, it's not bad as the other lie would have been. That child is hard to understand, but no house will ever be dull when she is around." Children, we can see that Anne was so happy to have the ice cream that day that she tells it was the best thing which happened, and she doesn't have words to describe that ice cream. Children, by words fail means it's a phrase used to say that you don't know what to say because you are so happy or so shocked. So here we can say that Anne is very happy to have that ice cream. So her words are failing to describe that ice cream. And later we see that night Marilla tells Matthew that perhaps she had believed Anne's lie a bit too easily. But the way it turned out was better than the other lie. If Anne had really lost the pin in the lake and cooked up a lie to cover it. She also admits that without Anne, the house would be a dull house. Hope you have understood the story, children. Now it's assignment time. You have to learn the meanings of these words. One more assignment, children. This question is from your textbook itself, page number 16. You have to say whether these sentences are true or not true. Do these questions in your textbook itself, children. Use pencil to do. Thank you so much, children. But don't forget to read the chapter again and learn the hard words nicely.